For anybody that's interested in launching the app, we're going to be talking to Reneida Leon. And so she is the product accelerant founder at Barada Product Lab. Let's start with your background first. So
Sure.
what led you down this path?
Well, my early background was product marketing, which is not, it is not uncommon in the sense that people come to product manager from many different sources, whether it's software development, or it could be marketing, or it could be like, a subject matter expert that ends up managing a product within their area of expertise. In my case, from a marketing perspective, I became interested in digital early in my career, launch projects that had to do with promoting digital products. And that led to me trying to build my own app. And I had no idea how to do it. So I kind of winged it. I did some research while I was completing my MBA. Fell in love with the process, but also failed miserably because it turns out there's some nuance to it. But I learned a ton. And that learning opportunity, because this was an educational app, led me to then be hired by Kaplan Education. So I started my product career there in the innovation group, and there I of course I entered through a leadership program. So there was some training into their business model, and I then went on to work in other educational technology companies. But quickly I was like, hey, I love building products. I want to try other spaces. And that led me to work in e-commerce for a company like Kroger. So massive grocery chain throughout the nation. And later on working with other startups. I do love the innovation process. So from my early experiences to working in the innovations and lab groups for Kaplan, it's always been about that validation of edge ideas, for me at least. So that is, I think, what led me to continue working with startups for the rest of my career. And that has been sort of my specialty since then.
Okay. Well, when we're talking about startups and stuff like that, every last person out there right now wants to take advantage of this. A part of me feels like, man, like, are we kind of on the back end of this? Are we behind the curve? And I think we are at this point. But one of the things we talked about is the fact that AI does allow you basically to do rapid validation, right? Rapid product prototyping, really. And this is something that I know requires a lot of money many, many years ago, or maybe several years ago. So let's talk about rapid prototyping. What is it? And how are we doing? How should we do it? How are we doing it wrong?
The funny thing about AI, and I think this goes for a lot of different fields, is that the underpinnings of what it's doing are still the same. Like the things that you need to do are still the same. It's just that AI is allowing us to do it faster, to automate some things, and just get to solutions more efficiently. So in the case of validation, the thinking has always been that whenever we have an idea for a product, for just whatever we want to build, we normally have a hypothesis or something that we believe that there's a problem and that the solution to that problem is X, Y, and Z. And nobody can solve it the way we do because the current solution is terrible. So almost every idea you could sort of sort it out as a narrative of that vision. But of course, packaged within that narrative, there are all sorts of assumptions that we're making based on our own biases, and I'm saying biases in a very broad way, our own experiences that may or may not be the same experiences that other people have, and our limited sort of research and knowledge that we may have about how to solve that problem. So the thinking has always been like, you have to deconstruct that statement and try to find out what are the assumptions I'm making about the market, about whether people really are suffering from this. And not only are they suffering from it, but are they suffering so much that they're willing to pay you for it? Or at least there's somebody within that market that's willing to subsidize the idea, because you're going to have to build a business on top of it. So all those things have always remained the same. And at some point as an entrepreneur, hopefully early on, the idea is that you have to explore your idea as a prototype. So you have to explore the problem almost experimentally as a hypothesis and come up with some prototype that allows you to go to a real user and say, would you buy this? Would you sign up for it? It's $10 a month. Is that, can I sign you up for it and start probing whether you really have something that has traction that will develop into something that is solving their pain point so much that they're willing to give you money, or say maybe some part of the assumptions are right, maybe the problem is right but the solution isn't right. So they're also, or maybe the problem is right, the solution is right, but maybe you asked the wrong person. It is not the user you thought. It is not the students that have the problem. Maybe it is the teachers that have the problem. So you have to redesign the application to service teachers and not students or parents. So there's throughout that process, prototyping has always been a critical part of that hypothesis testing process. And in the past, we would do that, maybe sketching, but then it wouldn't look very realistic, which maybe is good for some things, but not for others. Or we needed to have somebody who was technical enough to generate a prototype using Figma, something that could be clickable, Envision way back. So you needed to have somebody who was willing to do that. And maybe if you had access to a technical person who could create a more or less usable prototype, even better, even if it was at a minimum viable product level. What AI is doing is that it's allowing us to do that very quickly at an individual level with just a few prompts. You can go into tools like Lovable, like Replit, and just give them a prompt of your idea and see a prototype in action that then you can test in the market and see if you're right about your assumptions, if you're wrong. And you can do that by yourself, or you can do that at least to try it and then recruit a team, because that was the other challenge. I faced that challenge too as an early founder of, it's like, hey, I know I can't build this by myself. I need people who can help me. I need to get somebody excited about being my co-founder. But co-founders usually wanted to see something in action before joining. They wanted to see a gelled vision. So this allows people with all levels of technical ability to approach prototyping and to generate the traction needed to, attract investors and attract co-founders and team members and really get going with real customers.
So for, I guess, what's the likelihood of success for somebody who just steps out there? They have this in their mind, because I'll put it like this. I hear this a lot. I've been part of this. The reality, like, give me the truth. Give me what is the probability of success that me as an average, or any person that's kind of in the same situation, you have this idea, you want to go in and you want to vibe code an app, that app will be successful?
Well, the probabilities of success in digital entrepreneurship are very low, regardless of whether you use AI or not. And that is just a reality that all of us have to contend with. That even if you're not using AI, the probability of you building a business with that initial idea is low. Even the best companies like Slack, X, formerly Twitter, all those companies pivoted from the original idea. They're not even related to what they started out doing, precisely because, and they succeeded at least in having some businesses. There's like a whole graveyard of companies that don't succeed that initial product market fit exercise. So what we're talking about is that you're still going to face a lot of difficulty in finding that product market fit. You are just making it more economical for yourself, particularly as a non-technical founder, to get to a point where you can ask for help, start building a team with the talent that you're going to need. You're going to need talent, still in engineering. You're going to need talent in definitely cybersecurity, and you might need investment. So all this is doing in a way is democratizing that early validation, product market fit process, but it's not a guarantee at all of being able to build a business.
So someone reaches out to you, they hire you. What do you do for folks that are trying to make an app?
So there are various frameworks and ways of validating an idea, precisely to go through it systematically, to test your hypothesis about the problem, about the customer, and sort of all the assumptions that go into it. So I take people through that sort of lean validation process. I am also certified in things like design thinking, which are also another tool in our tool belt when we think about, who is this helping? What kind of problem do they have? How do I know? And how do we delight them even more in our solution. And things like Design Sprint, which is a sort of a Google it originated with Google research team, and they've sort of expanded it beyond their sort of their enterprise validation to now cover early startup validation. So all these are frameworks that I'm an expert in. I can help them go through and take them through all that experimentation progress. And for a lot of my clients, I actually engage in the experimentation myself because it is hard. It is hard going to people and conducting interviews with real users. You must do it. It's something not to skip, because it really is what gives you the reality check of whether you have a good idea or not, or where people are sort of lukewarm about it or not. But people sometimes need help. The way that you ask questions in a way that it is non-leading, much like a good journalist, there is a technique to asking good questions in order to get the answers that you're looking for. And all those techniques are things that I take my clients through. I engage with that myself. The other aspect of my business that I help people develop is sort of the quantitative side. So we've talked a lot about sort of qualitative, figuring out product market fit by talking to people, but there's also a quantitative side. Once you develop a prototype, another thing that you want to do right away, and you could do it virtually for free, is to have some sort of product analytics backbone. So some kind of tool. There is Post-hoc, for example, that is open source, or you can use the best in the industry, which is probably, my opinion, Amplitude. But what you want to do is basically tag every piece of functionality that you have in that application and understand how people are navigating through it. And if people are not getting to the point where you want them to be, meaning they're not converting, like maybe they watched the initial intro video but maybe they signed up, but they never came back. So all those things are more quantitative in nature. Those are things that you want to keep a tally of to understand really what is going on once people approach your app. It is something that you can do remotely, so people don't need to see you, which maybe makes it more honest about whether they're using the app or not. Maybe they logged in and tell you, yeah, I logged in, I wanted to try it, I helped you out with that, but then they didn't do anything, or they couldn't find a way to navigate the app. So we take our clients through that process of installing product analytics, of creating dashboards, and creating the views that will help them interpret that data.
What would you say to somebody who feels like, okay, well, I would like to launch an app, I'm willing to do all the right things, is it too saturated right now to try to launch another app? Or what are you?
Yeah, I mean, it all depends, right? Like I think there are spaces that saturate very quickly. I always joke that the first spaces to saturate are always like the tutoring and college related apps, because all the college students that are creating apps and that with the latest technology, they approach the problems that they know the most. So those markets saturate very quickly. I'm saying there may still be opportunities there, but one thing that I'm very optimistic about, in fact, is because this democratization of everyone virtually being able to dream up an app, we will start seeing some very obscure problems that people in very, very niche industries knew existed, but maybe they didn't know anyone technical enough that would create an app for them. Or, maybe I'm thinking about areas like industrials and agriculture and very specific use cases. And now they're going to be empowered to at least try it out and say, I think I can solve this problem for my space. So I am hopeful. I hope that more people will at least try. If you haven't found a solution out there in the market, try it. I think there's also something to be said about creating applications for your own use. Even if you're not, the economics are such that you can create applications very cheaply. So even if it's just for your family and a problem that is very unique to your family, maybe start there. And if it's useful to you, I mean, it's okay. Maybe you'll find 1,000 other families who will want to pay you for it. But if not, maybe it'll solve the problem for your family or for your place of work.
Okay. All right. And with that, anything else you want to share? Because we'll go ahead and wrap with that. So
Yeah, so actually the last topic, because we are in a cybersecurity channel, a lot of the sort of pushback I've heard is about the threats that come from all these inexperienced people creating applications. And I do want to recognize that that is an issue. I think is not just an issue that people in cybersecurity are thinking about, but people who are creating these tools like Replit, like Lovable, are thinking about that. And I think at this point, one of the biggest problems is people don't know what they don't know. So I would encourage everyone who is building an app or vibe coding an app to dig into the documentation of the platform you're using, whether it's Replit, Lovable, because most of them by now have seminars or webinars, I should say, on protecting your app and making sure that at least you're prompting the app to check itself on certain vulnerabilities. If you're integrating with APIs, making sure that you're securing those APIs. If you are asking for information, that you know whether you're using personally identifiable information. And there's a whole host of things that now you can actually prompt these tools, just like you mentioned in your example, to say, hey, check about this vulnerability, check about that. And there's a checklist I'm using. I will have a presentation on this I'm going to call it vibe killers. So what every vibe coder should know about security, about cybersecurity. So that'll be a follow-up. I will send you some information about that later. But if you are concerned about that possibility, which is very real, do seek out information or contact me, and I'll be happy to share some of what I know so far.
Yo, so good. So I have probably a very unpopular opinion about AI and coding. I believe that ultimately AI will be able to do secure coding better than humans because I believe that it will be more likely to follow some type of method that's replicated at a certain point after seeing millions of different apps and stuff like that versus, humans in our individuality and stuff like that. So I think AI and secure coding are going to be something. Ultimately, I think that's going to be the secure coding future that us vulnerability assessors have been looking for. So that,
Interesting. Yeah.
yeah.
That's a good take.
So we'll see if that comes true. See how this age is right on YouTube.
Exactly.
So thank you
Yeah.
for dropping in to talk about this. As things develop, I would love, reach out if there's something interesting happening within the AI space and development
Yeah.
space, please let me know. I'd love to have you back to talk on this. And for those of you watching the channel, just want to say, if you made it to this point in the video, let's use hashtag vibe coding, right? So, okay. So, or we should say vibe coding killers if you want to, but thank you for watching the video. And once again, I'll have more AI content coming to the channel. So if you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. But either way, thank you for your time and thank you for watching.